In this lesson, we'll continue to work on some of the details on the front part of our vehicle. So here we're going to be looking at the not only the shelf right here, but also this vent coming down right in here. So the first thing that we're going to do is kind of fill in this geometry along the top. So what we want to do is basically select these edges, and what I'm talking about are these middle edges right in here. So I'm going to go ahead and select these edges kind of over to this side. Okay, and then so what we want to do is just go ahead and go to our move tool and just pull these straight in. Okay, we can also scale these in so they're kind of nice and straight here, and we'll just pull those straight in like that. All right, now we can come across here and so like this edge and this edge, and let's go ahead and bridge those. Okay, take our segments down to 1 and say OK. I'm going to select basically all of these guys. Okay, and I'm going to actually leave these until we mirror this across, and then we can go ahead and do that. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and leave this as is for now. All right, so the next thing that I want to do is actually look at this bottom vent, kind of this piece right in here. So the first thing I want to do is create this bottom lip, or create some geometry for that rather. So I'm going to go ahead and just select these edges, this ring, and go ahead and just run a connect, and I'll slide that up until it's at the top of that lip right there. Okay, go ahead and say OK on that, and now we can select this loop, and let's say that we want to kind of move this up. I'm not going to move the whole thing, I'm just going to move a portion of this. So I'm going to go ahead and select the edges right here, and this one, and this one, and I'll go ahead and kind of move that up a bit. And now we need to add a little bit of extra geometry in here to be able to handle where this is actually located. So go ahead and just choose a ring, and let's go ahead and add another edge loop in there just by using connect. We'll go ahead and choose slide to be 0, so it's right there in the middle. Now we want to make sure that we kind of move this out so that we're not kind of changing the shape of our geometry here. Okay, and this is going to be close enough for us, although we can go ahead and move this over if we want to. Okay, just make sure that we don't change the shape of our geometry there very much. All right, so now we know where we want the vent to be. Okay, it's going to be located right in here. Okay, so kind of right in here. Let's go ahead and just move this over just a little bit. Move that guy over a little bit, move that guy over a little bit, and then we'll select these polygons as well as this polygon here. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and using inset will often give you a nice kind of row of geometry around any kind of pieces that you're going to be extruding in so that you get a nice and sharp edge. So what I'm going to do is go ahead and inset this. Now this is going to be a little weird because we're doing it just on one side, but we can go ahead and fix that. So just do an inset, and you can see how this doesn't bring it out from the surface, it just sets it into the surface, or kind of brings that in like that. So I'm going to create kind of a pretty tight inset there. Okay, and now what I want to do is actually, I don't want to continue this line up here because then it will create kind of a crease, but I do want to continue it as it comes down here. So what I can do is go ahead and grab this edge. Excuse me just a second. And what we want to do is go ahead and just delete that. And now on these edges, we can go ahead and select a ring selection. And we can go ahead and connect and slide that down. Okay, to about the same spot. And then we can go ahead and grab our cut and go ahead and connect that up right in there. And then we can also connect this up right down here. And we'll see why we do that in a little bit. We can also just connect this over straight across and straight across. And then we can go ahead and delete those original edges. Just hit Q to go to select, right in there, and we can actually get rid of this edge as well. All right, so that's going to go ahead and mirror over OK for us. So now what we want to do is actually select these polygons, which are already selected, and we'll go ahead and extrude those in. So we'll just hit extrude, okay, and it can do either by group, by local normal. I'm going to do it by local normal, and go ahead and I'm going to think ahead and think that, okay, I want to make sure that this is nice and sharp in here, so I'm going to add an extra line in here rather than going in and adding that edge loop later. I can do that as I extrude. So I can extrude this once, then apply that, change the height to extrude that a little bit farther back. All right. And then if I want to keep this geometry, I'll say OK. If I want, for instance, keep this, maybe I want the back of this vent here, I want to be able to create that. And rather than going in and creating a plane and trying to fit it in, it's nice to just kind of keep this, even if you want to cut it out, you can go ahead and just detach it. So I'll just detach that, and now I've got this separate piece in here. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and select these polygons in the center that we've created from that extrude, and just get rid of those so that when we mirror that over, you can see we won't have any geometry messing it up in here. Now, if we smooth this, you'll see that this is a lot smoother or a lot more round than what we probably want. So you can see if I smooth that out, it's probably, we don't want it to be quite that round. If we look in our front view, you can see that it is, in fact, a lot more straight up and down. Okay, so what we can do, there are a few things we can do. We can come in and add another loop in here, or if we're just smoothing it, if we're not using a subdivision surface, what we can also do is utilize triangles. Now typically I would normally stay away from triangles, but a lot of times if it's a hard surface item that you're not going to be deforming at all, sometimes you can do that. It just depends on your particular workflow and your particular pipeline that you're working in. So I can show you kind of both ways. We can go into our cut. There's our cut tool. There we go. And so, for instance, we want this to be nice and sharp. So let's try this up here. Want this to be nice and sharp, but let's say we don't want to continue that resolution all the way up here. Okay, so we could add an edge loop right in here, or we could come in, or right along here, or we could come in and just draw this out with our triangle. So, for instance, I would cut this off. So I could start it here, and then bring it in right along here. So we've got geometry where we need it, and then it's kind of cut off at that point. And then we can take a look at what that's going to look like. If we go ahead and smooth that out, you can see that that's going to give us a little bit of a sharper curve. Okay. We'll have to tweak it a little bit as we're getting a little bit of a crease there, but that's okay. We can deal with that. Okay. So the other way would be to come in, and you can see where this is kind of where we're getting that kind of crease there. So I'm going to go ahead and just pull this out a little bit. Move that over. And pull this out. So you can see where as you start to get more geometry in here, you can see how this tends to kind of flatten things out a little bit. So I kind of pull that across and make it a little bit softer. So again, if you wanted this to be hard down here at the bottom, you could come in and instead of drawing this out as a triangle, you could just select that whole entire ring. And you see where this goes all the way over here, and just connect that up and add a whole line right in there. And so you can see how that's going to soften things up as well. Okay? So you can see how that's nice and hard there. So it gives us kind of a nice hard edge either way you want to go. All right. Go ahead and select this guy again. And so now what we can do in the next lesson, we've got that vent kind of extruded in. The next thing that we want to do is create some struts here. And what I mean by those are kind of these pieces right in here. There's one right here, and then one right over here that actually defines the side of the headlight there. Okay, so we'll go ahead and come in the next lesson and look at how we can do that. You also might want to go ahead and take a look at grabbing the interior, this piece that we built in there, grabbing that, and you can see here it doesn't match up quite right, so I can go ahead and pull that straight up, and that'll match up a little bit better. Okay, so we've still got quite a lot to do. You can see what a process this is, but we'll go ahead and just keep plugging away. In the next lesson, we are going to go ahead and add some struts here on this front bumper. So we'll go ahead and do that in the next lesson.